they had the traditional like table stands up, and they just put a couple of like issues. It was focused for nonprofits, but a couple of issues that nonprofits could be facing. And if you wanted to discuss that over lunch, you could self-select in at that table and have that conversation. And for folks who may not be as extroverted as I am, there were also tables that had no placard on
them. Hi, friends. Ever wondered how you could turn your big ideas into results? I'm Maria Rio, your go-to guide for helping small nonprofits have real-world impacts. Together, let's reimagine a better sector, tackle systemic issues, and yes, raise some serious cash. Welcome back to The Small Nonprofit, the podcast where your passion meets action. Hi, friends. Nice to be in community again with you today. I have a cool guest to talk all about community building and refreshing your events, how to make them actually engaging so they feel less transactional, and just how to bring people together and the purpose of why we like to do that as a sector. So I'd love to introduce you to Ashley. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, Maria. So glad to be here with you today.
So happy to have you. And I'm really excited for our conversation today. I think that a lot of people have really struggled to build community or bring people back in person, even if it's just for like board meetings or something like that. So I think that our listeners are going to get a lot out of this topic. But before we jump in, can you tell our audience a little bit about who you are, what you do, how you got into nonprofit, all those good topics?
Wonderful. Yeah. So I'm Ashley Alaniz-Moyer. Like many nonprofit professionals, I wear many a hat. I currently serve as executive director of the Hispanic Scholarship Consortium. We're a nonprofit based out of Austin, Texas, awarding scholarships to local Latino students. On top of that, I also recently launched a communications agency with a good friend of mine called Refuerzo Collaborative. So we've been supporting nonprofits and other small businesses on their communication efforts, specifically around media relations and community engagement. It's been a nice, wonderful bridge of my experience in nonprofits and my co-founder's experience in public relations and media relations. I first came into nonprofits really as a high school student who was very social, but wasn't a part of the party scene, and was trying to figure out a way to socialize with people beyond, drinking and all the activities that I think maybe a typical high school student does. And I, found all the volunteer service groups on campus and began, doing the Habitat for Humanity builds, once a Saturday or once a month, every Saturday, with a group on campus. And I found, our local Interact group as well, and took on volunteer projects that way as well. And I went into college kind of not knowing exactly what I wanted to do. At that point, I really didn't even realize that there were full-time paid staff members behind all of these wonderful nonprofits I was volunteering with. I had assumed that everyone was just volunteering, and that's how these organizations functioned. It wasn't until my later years in college that I went, oh, wait, this is a profession. This is a career. And I'm like, I have found my community. I've made lifelong friends volunteering, from, high school and maybe even before that, volunteering at Vacation Bible School at my church and things of that nature. So I knew kind of graduating that I wanted to be in the nonprofit scene. Unfortunately, I graduated, during an economic crisis. I graduated in 2009. It was a very interesting time. So I was a student in my final semester. I was interning with Make-A-Wish Foundation out of Fort Worth, Texas, where my university was. And I was enjoying my time, but one week I went in and half the staff was gone. And it was a total shock to me because they had to do some intense layoffs. It was a small team, but still to go from a 6-person staff to now, it was actually a 2.5-person staff. So even more than half the staff got laid off, was a really jarring experience. And then to also put myself, to central myself in that as well, going, oh man, this is the career you want to get into. And you just saw these wonderful individuals that you've gotten to know over the last few months lose their jobs with these wonderful resumes. And it really kind of challenged me, made me think, okay, is this a profession you want to get into when you're so highly driven on donations and what's happening economically? Make-A-Wish Foundation, from my perspective, was using a lot of corporate dollars. And when, the economy slows, corporate giving slows as well. And individual giving will slow down as well. So it was a very interesting time to kind of be like, yes, nonprofits, this is where I want to be. So it took me quite a while to, find my groove in the nonprofit scene. So after graduating college, I did an AmeriCorps Vista year. So I served with Big Brothers Big Sisters out of Dallas, and was a program training and event specialist with them. So through there, I kind of really got the opportunity to learn from these great large nonprofits with multiple chapters across the country, and learn how they function. Really loved the experience, and having these very clearly defined roles. But a part of me realized that I like doing all the things. I like wearing all the hats. So I always knew that the smaller nonprofit was the right space for me, because it gave me the opportunity to pivot in a day's notice of, what was most exciting, and, often having to be the janitorial staff, and now having to be the tech side of the house as well, and my IT team. And, in addition to the programs and the development side of the house as well, is really wearing all the hats. I think it can be a burden and exhausting at times, but there's a part of me that really thrives off the concept of us nonprofit professionals wearing a lot of hats.
Oh my goodness, you have done everything in nonprofit. You've done everything. Wow, it's so nice to hear how many different perspectives you have on the sector as a volunteer and at different organizations of different sizes, and seeing the good and the bad, which I'm sure was very shocking at the beginning, but now as an ED, you probably see every nook and cranny of everything that needs to happen. So I'd love to get your thoughts on community development and community engagement, because that's something that you've done personally as a volunteer and have made lifelong friends. But also, I guess you had to do it with your work, right? Like you're engaging people of like the Latino community, and like you're working with volunteers as well currently. So I'd love to hear about what you think about community engagement. At first, what do you mean by that? Do you mean like service users? Do you mean donors? Do you mean the wider public? What does that mean to you first?
Community engagement to me means it all. I think it involves engaging your clients or whoever you're providing a service to, involving them in the process, and making sure that they're, getting the opportunity to give their feedback, and that you're truly engaging with that community. At my nonprofit, we're working with college students. So everyone's world got turned upside down after the pandemic, but in particular students, like the learning environment changed a lot. We're now in the year of 2024. So we're seeing a lot of those students who graduated high school in 2020, now graduating from college, and really kind of getting their perspective on, what all has changed and how we can best serve them. I think that's one piece of community engagement. At the nonprofit, most of our scholarship sponsors are connected to an organization, whether that's another nonprofit, an association, or maybe a small or mid-sized business. So that's another piece of community engagement, is just kind of getting out there, developing those partnerships. But when I think community engagement, I think of, maybe the traditional of, building partnerships with other nonprofits, making sure that you're connected again with that community that you're serving, and not just kind of blasting out services. That is something that you're listening to as much as you're doing the talking, and maybe a little bit more listening than the talking.
It's funny for me, when I think of community and nonprofits, I think of program staff. I feel like they're so good at building community with each other and with community members, but it's not something that's usually widely adopted by the broader organization. And it's not something that is done very intentional from the leadership position. So that's something that I see as a problem when it comes to community engagement. Are there any other ones that stick out to you?
When I really think about galas and events right now, I think that there's a community engagement aspect that might be missing from these big traditional fundraisers that we've always hosted. I think we've been really excited to get back to hosting events and not having to do virtual whatever's anymore. That we've been back, back in person for a couple years now. But I think overall we've been seeing kind of community engagement decline, whether that's a nonprofit that you've always supported, maybe you're considering going to an event a little bit less than you would have before. Or if there's, I've seen through alumni chapters that I'm a part of that the engagement has decreased quite a bit as well. I think everyone really, after the pandemic, their circle got a little bit smaller because everyone was trying to, go through life in what felt in a most safe way for them. So everyone's circle kind of got a little bit smaller during that time. So these big grand events, I think are a little bit harder for folks to engage with, and definitely a need for getting creative around these events.
Even when you say that, so yes, events and also like volunteering, like we're seeing a decline of people volunteering across the sector. And I wonder if that has to do with like their sense of belonging at a nonprofit. And same thing with events. Like we know events are a little bit transactional. Like how can we move towards, actually engaging people in a way that that encourages them to want to come, that makes them feel like this is something that I really want to do, not because I get to, eat a fancy dinner or get recognition from being a volunteer or whatever it is, but something that just brings me joy and fulfillment personally. I think that's such a big piece of the program staff building community, right? Like they get that joy and fulfillment of helping others like directly. But how do we bring that across the whole organization or across different pockets of internal and external groups? So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that. So like if the problem is groups are getting smaller, people are choosing more judiciously how to spend their time, how can nonprofits address that?
I think there's a great way. I think, especially I think about myself a lot too, is a lot changed for me socially since the pandemic. And my time is very limited in the things that I want to do. I also had, a little one at the end of 2019. So motherhood and the pandemic kind of go hand in hand for me. And again, my life completely changed. But really thinking of it as this is a social activity. It doesn't have to be, just one person individually volunteering. We've reached out to volunteers who have reviewed scholarship applications with us year over year and said, is there someone that you'd like to recommend? And someone who, while our volunteer opportunities are virtual, it is an opportunity to connect with someone and bring someone else in. And like, this is an organization that I've been volunteering with multiple years. Would you like to join me in serving and making it that social aspect? Again, that's very much how I came into the nonprofit sector. So I always think of any opportunities that we're providing as, is it being a moment to socialize, to connect with one another. Typically, at least with a nonprofit, you're connecting with people who have, similar missions or similar goals in life, based around a particular nonprofit and the cause. So it's a great opportunity to meet someone new or, bring that, friend that you haven't connected with in a while, bring them along for the ride as well. So I always think of like, how can we really make this a fun social moment? And then now we've, at the nonprofit that I work for, we've also done that on our development side of the house. So we were slated to host our 15th anniversary in April of 2020. And we were so excited to be hosting that event. We all know how April 2020 went. It was early April 2020. So we also didn't get much time to pivot in that. So we kind of put this event on hold for quite a while, and also had a balance with the hotel for quite a while where this event was supposed to be hosted. And at one point they finally came to us and said, we need you guys to use your balance or we're going to have to just let it go. And we're like, okay, so we're forced, we're being pushed in a corner to force this event. So we hosted an event. We hosted it in February of 23. And when tickets weren't immediately selling, I went back to the board and went, we need a new plan. Like this isn't working. And luckily I've got a very, collaborative board chair who's also fairly young in age. She's actually our first alumni of our program serving as a board chair. So we're having this beautiful, full circle moment at our nonprofit right now as well. But she was like, it's in February. It's a few days before Valentine's Day. Let's make it, a love theme type event. So it turned into Con Amor, HSC, which is our abbreviation of our organization, the Hispanic Scholarship Consortium. And what we did is we wrote love notes. We wrote love notes to partners of ours, to students of ours who have been a great example of leadership and determination. And we had these notes posted all across the room. We invited folks to write a love note to someone who, a mentor of theirs, maybe it is a romance based relationship and you could write a love note as well. Or you could write a love note or a note of encouragement to a scholarship recipient as well. So we really tried to do our best to make it a fun social activity than the traditional eat your rubber chicken dinner, applause as we announce all the sponsors. We wanted to get a little more creative with it. Being a smaller nonprofit, having those people excited to be at an event, posting on social, becoming advocates of your organization is a great win for us as well. It's not, was a great reminder that it's not always about the dollars, that sometimes it can just be about kind of, reestablishing your space in the community and bringing folks together. And we made it also an opportunity for our scholarship sponsors to meet one another and understand kind of why they choose to sponsor scholarships for Latino students in Austin, Texas. And I think it was just a great showcase of community. And now with the community communications agency that I founded with a friend of mine, we've also been working with nonprofits on how to rethink their events as well, and make them, fun, exciting, have these moments to socialize. I think, so many opportunities switched and made a really strong pivot to virtual opportunities. We've seen an increase in podcasting, and a lot of great learning happens through podcasting, but conferences, we're really strong in a virtual environment as well. So we have all these opportunities that we can learn and develop at home, with our headphones on, watching a screen. So when we're going out, and I joke when I'm putting on pants that aren't elastic pants, I want to make sure it's worth it. I want to, really make sure that it's an opportunity for me to connect with other folks, and kind of reminding our clients at the communications agency that, it's not the same old isn't going to work, that we really need to integrate these opportunities to socialize and connect with one another more in these events.
I love what you said about Con Amor, because instead of going with a quinceañera theme, which was very mission tied, right? Really great, super good idea, definitely very engaging for the community that you serve. Con Amor is also equally engaging, but it is pivoting to be okay, our community didn't react immediately to this one. Maybe they want something different. So it's a form of listening and a form of applying those changes to make it fresh, to make it fun, to make it engaging. I love that you brought in that mentorship part as well. All of these are really, really good ideas. And yeah, just hopefully people can start applying them to actually make their events fun. Because as you were saying, if I had to change out of my elastic pants, if I had to put on a bra, if I had to put on makeup, it better be special, right? I better be getting something out of it. Just in that same vein, as a speaker, because I do some speaking sometimes, right? As a speaker, some of the sessions that I've been most excited to do recently have been the ones where it's very interactive, and I get to hear directly from people about how they're approaching dignified storytelling or community-centric fundraising, and just live workshops, some issues. So even when you're talking about conferences, yeah, talking at people works. Sometimes they learn stuff, but it's not as engaging. It doesn't make you feel as connected to the cause, to the person, to what you're trying to do together. So I just found that really, really interesting as well.
Yeah. And, I've been attending lots of conferences. I define myself as a lifelong learner, and, really, yearn for the opportunities to engage with one another and learn from other people. I think, the concept of these mini masterminds that are kind of happening at conferences. One of my favorite experiences as an attendee one time was at a conference, and at lunch they had the traditional table stands up, and they just put a couple of issues. It was focused for nonprofits, but a couple of issues that nonprofits could be facing. And if you wanted to discuss that over lunch, you could self-select in at that table and have that conversation. And for folks who may not be as extroverted as I am, there were also tables that had no placard on them. So if you were like, I just want to eat my meal, decompress before I jump into the next session, you also had the space to be able to do that. But for someone like me who, once I kind of get out again, when I get out of my elastic bands, when I'm out in the community connecting with folks, I can't get enough. So I'm like, give it all to me. So, that luncheon, again, was probably one of my favorite experiences as an attendee that I've had at a conference lately.
That reminds me of this event that we did at an organization that I worked at, where we did something called Pizza with the Politicians. So we make the pizza and we invite our community members and our local representatives to actually come and talk to community members about the issues that matter to them. So we had surveyed the community, we found their top 3 public policy priorities and invited people to come speak on those. So social assistance, free or OHIP paid dental care. So a bunch of different priorities, but it was really fun, really refreshing, a different take, and also so like mission connected. It just felt so community driven. And like everybody was super engaged. People were dancing. People were, like blowing balloons up, and there was face painting. So it was like really like community based, with your family, with each other, in it together. So I just really love this theme of like, how do you build community and engage community, at different parts of your organization. There was something that you said in our like pre-screening call for the podcast that I really want to touch on because I thought it was really interesting. So you had mentioned how you can present like an event or some sort of like bringing people together as a multi-step thing. So instead of having one event, is you come and you learn something that you need to know for event 2. So I kind of loved what you were talking about that because it engages people to bring that value back and have to come back for more value. Is there an example of that you've seen be done successfully?
We're currently working, on the communications agency side of it. We're currently working with an organization to build that cadence. So we're, helping them think about all their events and think of it as an opportunity to build on or to grow skills from. So we're working with a client right now on that. But I think it just adds like this extra level of commitment for individuals to also, show up for the next one or, maybe be a little bit scared that they're going to miss out on this big aha moment. We do some programming for high school students as well on the nonprofit that I wear. I wear all the hats. So I'm like, I always need to clarify which hat I'm wearing in this moment. But for the nonprofit that I work for, we do some high school programming as well. And we were just kind of hosting these events every couple months for high school students. And we had to take a moment and go, okay, we're seeing, about 10 faces that kind of keep coming. And then there's another 50 that may or may not come back for another event. So we were like, what's a way to really make this feel like it's not just a one-time event or a 2-time event that you're going to go to, that this really is a program that you're being a part of. So really making sure that we're building out like a true outline or learning outcomes for participants of a program. So that's one thing that we really focused on there was, taking a skill set. Okay, you learned about this. Now we're going to take this and take it to this level now. And then I think always just a token of like their commitment as well. So, high school students, they're kind of easy to motivate. It's the same aspect that I now take with my son. Stickers are amazing in motivating folks to come on out. We see that at even like restaurants and stuff too. Like I get the app notifications from Dutch Bro Coffee about like new sticker, come get your sticker. And if it's a cute sticker, you'll find me in that drive-through line waiting, 45 minutes for my chai tea. But we added stickers to their conference badges. So they would start collecting stickers, and it was a great showcase of like how committed they are. And that students would see, wow, this person has 8. I only have 2. I want to make sure that I'm getting more stickers and kind of have that. So they were, really getting this opportunity to kind of showcase their commitment and, had this very visible, recognition for their participation in the program.
Oh my God, stickers. That would definitely get me to come out. Humans, we're such simple creatures. But yes. Okay. So speaking of like what you were saying with the stickers, I like how you're using something that they gain at each event, at each time that they come. Because first of all, it like increases the retention of that program participant, but also they don't have to wait all the way to the end to get a certificate. Like they can see and kind of, this natural spirit of competition or community like comes out and you're like, okay, like I want to be a part of the group with 8 stickers. I don't want to be a part of the group with 2 stickers. So yeah, love that.
Stickers, the great motivator. Yeah.
Honestly. I wonder if there's any examples that you could give us of specifically building community with board members. So sometimes those are some of the harder volunteers to engage because maybe they're coming to the organization from like a friend of a friend or anything like that. But anything in like how you can build community with the board or how the board members can build community with each other.
I think one thing that I really appreciate about my board right now is they allow for each other to be humorous in board meetings. And, I think so often we feel like we need to, in all sectors of life, that we need to button up and be our perfectly polished selves. But I really appreciate my board. I feel like, from my perspective, has a really great rapport with one another right now, and that they're finding opportunities to just connect with each other. 2 of them have played on a rec soccer league together in their adult lives, and that they can make jokes about, soccer now in a board meeting, and then in a finance meeting, I had a board member joke about, taking the money and running to a casino. Obviously, that's not like anywhere close to the truth of what was going to happen, but it was just that they could crack jokes and have that level of comfort with one another, and just really show up as their true selves. So I think a little bit of that is, I love following my agendas. I love staying on track on time, but realizing that sometimes it's okay to have those moments of what might seem like a distraction from my perspective, where I'm like, okay, I only get you guys for an hour at these board meetings. I need you guys to focus, but giving them the opportunity to build that rapport with one another, I think is really helpful. And then I think that hopefully, opens up the door for them to, invite those friends, those colleagues into the mission of the organization as well.
It's almost like making space and time for them to connect works. Wow.
Yeah. And just I guess it really goes back to just giving them that space to socialize. Once again, that seems like what it is that, yeah, they're getting the opportunity to connect and, really learn who each other is. I've served on boards before where I feel like I know the individual really well, but then when I'm asked where they work, I'm like, oh, you know what? I don't actually know. Where I don't get that opportunity to truly know who they are as an individual. I know what they've contributed to this organization, but knowing them as a human being might get a little bit lost.
I've only been part of one board, which I'm still on currently. It's the Living Wage Canada board, and as part of that, yeah, there's some people who are a little bit further that I don't have that personal connection. But something that has helped me build community is like reaching out to people on LinkedIn and setting up a 30-minute one-on-one. And now I feel like I know you so much better, right? Like I just get who you are and your values so much better. So I don't know. I think there's opportunities for people to kind of put in some of these efforts themselves without feeling scared or like they're going to get turned down or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I tell my college students, the scholarship recipients, when they graduate from college, it's a lot harder to make friends. And it's not that people are more guarded in any way. It's that you have to just put more effort into it. Especially, I think, as a young professional, for many of them, stepping into the workforce, everyone's in the same position of them of like, wait, how do I make friends? How do I do this? It's just, you have to be willing to put yourself out there, pinch more, and, ask people to lunch maybe a little bit more aggressively than you would have in the past. But you have to be, I took this from a past supervisor of mine, but polite persistence is really the way to go, especially that was in fundraising, but practicing polite persistence and consistently kind of following up with folks and, really making them feel like you want to connect with them and just grab coffee. I think everyone's always down for a cup of coffee.
And it's funny because you don't actually have to say it yourself. Like, hey, why didn't you come to that meeting? Like the stickers say it for you. So it's a really interesting system. Ashley, you're the best. I'm so glad that you've been able to build so much community around you because we all really need that right now. Are there any final thoughts that you'd like to leave our audience with?
Any final thoughts? It's just, community is everywhere you go. It's, in the parent pickup line, being a parent myself, that's where my mind goes is it's in the parent pickup line. It's the folks at your grocery store because you know that they're local to you if they're shopping at that grocery store. And then obviously the more common places of, church and work and the organizations you may serve with, but really kind of look at community being all around you.
And Ashley, where can people find you if they'd like to continue the conversation?
Yeah, would love for folks to connect with our communications agency. Always open to conversations. They can connect with us at refuerzocollaborative.com. That's REFUERZO collaborative. And then also on social, you'll find us at Refuerzo Collaborative.
So we will have that linked in the show notes for all of our listeners. I hope you got a lot out of this episode. I really enjoyed hearing from Ashley on all the ways that she's building community and all the things that seem so easy to replicate for all of the listeners, for all the people who are working in the sector to build community with, our larger service user community, our donor community, but also with each other, which I think is such an important part of why we got into this work. So thank you again for listening to this episode of The Small Nonprofit, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Small Nonprofit. If you want to continue the conversation, feel free to connect with our guests directly or find me on LinkedIn. Let's keep moving money to mission and prioritizing our well-being. Bye for now.